Hello, it's the Texas troublemaker here. So I'm gonna give Uber and Lyft a break for today, although I will be getting back to them in the future. Today we're talking about ignorance and simple minds and how those things relate to partisanship, and I'm talking extreme partisanship here, and also even racism. Now, that sounds like a lot to swallow, right? Well, I'm gonna tie it all together all in a nice neat bow for you. And we're gonna do that right now.
You're looking for trouble? You come to the right place. You're looking for trouble? Just look right in my face.
So if this is your first time to my channel, I would ask that you subscribe and hit that bell and you'll be notified when I post another video. Okay, so what am I talking about here? When I say simple minds and ignorance, and I tell you that those things relate to things like partisanship and even racism. What am I trying to say? Let me tell you a story. I lost a friend of mine just this week. It's very sad, very sad. My friend was a very staunch Republican. He was a big fan of Donald Trump. And you know, to make a long story short, I'm going to tell you he died of COVID. He did not believe in vaccinations. He did not believe in wearing masks. And my friend suffered greatly. He suffered a lot. I don't wish that kind of suffering on anyone. I was up close and personal seeing this because he was an elderly man. He lost his wife about a year ago, and he didn't have any other family in town. And I became pretty close to him because he didn't have anyone else. So I put it upon myself to kind of just be there for him, and we became good friends. I'd known him for a really long time, but we were never really close until his wife passed away. And I just want to tell you about my experience with him during his final days, and then I'll get into the topics and how this all ties together. So he ended up in the hospital because he was having trouble breathing. He was really struggling to breathe. And at first they told him he didn't have COVID, and then they told him he did. And then with some other complications, it turned out he also had pneumonia and some other health issues that I won't get into all of his health issues. But the reason he passed away and the reason he was suffering so much in his final days was just trying to breathe. It was a struggle every breath. Over the last 3 weeks, I want to say, of his life, it was just a struggle for every breath. When he was in the hospital, they had him on oxygen, but he was still struggling to breathe. And it just got to the point where it was too much for him. I would visit him regularly in the hospital, and I went in one day and he just told me that he wanted it to be over. He said, the suffering is too much, and said, I want this process to stop, meaning the process of them trying to save him, and I want to end my life. Or basically, he told me he wanted me to help him end his life. And there was really nothing that I could do. I could get into the situation of, you know, his next of kin and that, all of that, and it's really not relevant to this video. What is relevant to this video is the fact that my friend who loved Donald Trump, thought he was the greatest thing ever, refused to be vaccinated and didn't want to wear masks because if you remember at the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency and all during his campaign for president, he was kind of against that. He really kind of downplayed the virus and downplayed mask wearing and made fun of people who wore masks and things like that. So that was kind of the mindset that my friend was in, I believe. He watched Fox News tirelessly. It was always on, you know, in his house pretty much. That was mostly all he watched. And just to see him suffer as much as he did at the end was really heart-wrenching. So after the day that he asked me to help him take his life, I went back the next day and he could not communicate at all. He just would lay there and say, help me, help me, help me, help me. And this went on all day. And it wasn't like he was communicating to me, because if I approached him and said, what do you need me to help you with? What's hurting you? What do you want me to do? He couldn't communicate anything. He just continued to stare blankly into space and say, help me, help me. It's like he didn't even know I was there. Nurses would come in and try to get him to talk to them and tell him what he needed. And he couldn't communicate at that point. And it just continued to go downhill from there. He got to the point where he couldn't even say, help me. He could, try to form words, but the words wouldn't even come together. It was just garbled, something that he was trying to say that wouldn't come out. He could no longer communicate at all. And there were times when I'd come to the hospital and I could hear him yelling in agony before I got to his room. His door was closed, but I'm halfway down the hall and I can just hear him yelling. I asked the nurse, I said, is that my friend? And they said, yeah, that's him. And it was just agonizing. He was in agony. And it was agonizing for me to see him that way. It was terrible. I hope that you never have to see a loved one suffering like that, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And I want to talk just a little bit about the healthcare system, because it's broken. You know what? All they care about now is making money and making sure that they don't get sued. The health and the well-being of a patient comes third. No better than third. It may be further down the list than that. But making money and making sure they don't get sued, those are top priorities for hospitals, doctors, right? They'll try to get you to have procedures that you don't need just to make the money. And then when someone is dying in agony, they'll let that person just lay there and suffer because they're scared of legal ramifications of just making that person comfortable and, honoring that person's wishes and just letting them go ahead and pass on. That's what my friend wanted. That's what he expressed to them. That's what he expressed to me. That's what he expressed to others who went to see him at the time when he could express anything at all. And he got to the point where he could not express anything. So then it became down to an argument over who his next of kin is and who's gonna sign for him to be put on hospice. They said we could give him a morphine drip that would ease his suffering, and yeah, he would probably go ahead and pass away at that point, but that's what he wanted. But they wouldn't do it. They just let him lay there and suffer, and it was horrible. If you have a dog and your dog is suffering, you will take that dog and have that dog put to sleep. You would not let it just continue to suffer. I'm a big fan of Westerns, and if a horse breaks its leg, the cowboy's not gonna let that horse just lay there and suffer. A cowboy's gonna put that horse out of its misery, right? Now, I know it's different with people, but I think when you're honoring their wishes and they are in absolute agony and begging to be put out of their misery, it is absolutely inhumane to just let them lay there and suffer for days and days. So what does all of this have to do with the topics of this video? Ignorance in simple minds, partisanship, and racism. What does any of that have to do with the way my friend died? Well, let me tell you. I already mentioned that he was a huge Donald Trump fan. He was a Fox News junkie. So what I'm trying to say is some people seem to let other entities do their thinking for them, i.e. the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or any such body. That's what I mean when I say simple minds, okay? The Republican Party is not always right. The Democratic Party is not always right. Neither are either of those parties always wrong. So when you simplify things like that, it's a dangerous thing. Okay, I'm a Republican, so Republicans are always right. I'm a Democrat, so Democrats are always right. If the Republican Party says that vaccines are bad, I'm not gonna get vaccinated. If the Republican Party says they're taking away our freedom by making us wear masks, I'm not gonna wear a mask. Really? What does healthcare have to do with politics? Republicans like to say those liberals are doing this to us or doing that to us. I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, but it just made sense to me that we needed a vaccine. Now, it's a personal decision. I don't knock anybody who doesn't want the vaccine, but why are you letting a political party make that decision for you? That is nonsense. Only a very simple mind would think that way. And let me tell you something else. When you go to vote, if you just vote straight party ticket, Republican or Democrat, that's a pretty good sign that you are an extreme partisan person. Because it's too much trouble to judge individual political candidates on their merit. It's too much trouble to hold them accountable for the things that they do wrong. You can still give them credit for the things that they do right, but they should be held accountable for the things that they do wrong. When you put people in a position to just say everything they do is good and there's never anything wrong, that's a problem. That's a major problem.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
When you make another party the enemy and everything they do is wrong and they can never do anything right, that's a problem. That's a simple mind. That's a very simple mind to think that way. That's the kind of extreme partisanship that has gotten us into the mess that we're in right now. Our government's about to get shut down. Joe Biden refuses to negotiate with the Republicans. The Republicans refuse to do what's best for the American people. They're in this battle, locked in this battle with Joe Biden, and that's all they can think about is winning against Joe Biden, not winning for the American people. And racism is based on this absolute same type of thinking. White is right, black is inferior. Do you not know that every person is an individual? But that's too complicated, right? You can't judge everyone as an individual. There are just too many people. So you have to put them in categories. Can we be individuals? Okay? Can you recognize that there are good and bad in the white race? There's good and bad in the black race and every other race. Simple minds. Simple minds always want to oversimplify things. Makes it easier. It's too complicated to treat people as individuals and judge them on their merit. You know, it's too complicated in government. Either you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. If you're one, you're good. If you're the other, you're bad. Or you're black or you're white. So if you're one, you're superior. If you're the other, you're inferior. Nothing could be farther from the truth. But that's how simple minds want to look at it. It's a form of extreme ignorance. My friend told me that it was the people who were vaccinated that were dying of the virus, not the unvaccinated people. That's not true. But where did he get that information from? Like I said, he's a Fox News junkie. Now, I'm not saying that Fox News said that, because I don't know. I don't watch Fox News very often. Why don't I watch Fox News? It's not news. It's not news. It's Republican propaganda, okay? Again, I said it already. I've been a Republican all my life. I'm a military veteran. The Republican Party was more supportive of the military. When I started to vote in my early 20s and I was in the Air Force, I voted Republican because I knew it was the Republicans that were going to give the military a raise. They were going to support the military while Democrats were trying to downsize. That sort of thing. So we always tend to vote our interests. And that was kind of my interest. And in time as I matured, I also learned that I'm a very fiscal conservative. I don't like the government throwing money at everything. I'm all for keeping the money in the hands of the people who earned it, not having it taken away by the government. So I'm definitely a fiscal conservative. But again, I have standards for my leaders. I think character matters. I don't understand why so many people think it doesn't. You make a deal with the devil, you're gonna get what you bargained for, and it's not gonna be good. I wish that we could mature as a nation. Let's start to recognize what values are important to this nation, and let's embrace those values. We're all Americans. Black, white, brown, red, yellow. It doesn't matter. We're all Americans. Why can't we be Americans? Why can't we stand for the values that America is supposed to stand for? That being freedom and justice for all. Can we work on that? Whether black, whether white, whether Democrat, whether Republican. Can we work on being a united America for a change? All right, that's gonna be my video for today. You take care. Till next time, this is the Texas Troublemaker.
You're looking for trouble? You come to the right place. You're looking for trouble? Just look right in my face.